Welcome to another episode of That's My Dad. I'm Scott Hilton. Got Jacob Graul with us.
It's good to be here, man. I appreciate it.
Jacob, you're probably one of the youngest guys we've had in here. You're 29, did you say?
29 years old. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
most of our guys have been old guys. But I was telling you when before we went live, I really wasn't sure about having a young guy until I got to talk to you on the phone and kind of understood your heart and what motivates you and where you are. And you really have quite an incredible story. So I told you I did some reference checks on you because I want to make sure we were good. It's the first time we've met.
Right.
But you've got quite an incredible story that I think a lot of kids are going to relate to. So if you would, let's just kind of roll into that. Start way back.
Yeah, man. I can say as a child going through school, and by the way, I really appreciate what you do and what your message is, and that's really why I reached out to you, because I'm so passionate about letting a child know, look, this isn't the end of the road. And my whole childhood, it was really derived of just conflict and getting in trouble all the time. Every school teacher remembers me. I guarantee you, they haven't forgotten my name or the way I behaved in their class.
In the wrong way.
Not in a good way, yeah. And but you know, just the way that it's all shaped out and where I am now, and it's a reflection of God in my heart, and I give Him all the glory for it. But I'm just so enthusiastic about any opportunity I get to speak to maybe some of those children or whatever that are going through some of the same things that I did.
So your dad has an interesting story himself.
Yeah,
tell us about that.
Yeah, so my real father I've never met ever. So growing up, his name's Tim, my dad, stepfather, whatever. I took his last name, but he was the only dad I ever knew. And he grew up, and he took me in before I can even remember, not having a dad, so probably 2 or 3 years old. And so he's been with me the whole time, but he never really had a father either, So his dad, I think, struggled with some alcohol problems, and I know Dad did a stint in adoption or DHR and things like that, and went to foster care even for a while. So Dad had a really, really tough upbringing. So Dad, I don't think really got a 101 on how to be a dad either, but he came into my life early on, and I thank God every day that he did. There was a lot of my life that my dad had to be the father, and he had to be the housekeeper. He had to be the cook. He had to be the counselor. He had to be the person that did the laundry. I mean, my dad had to wear all the hats. Mom had a lot of health issues and a lot of issues in general, and my dad just kind of he took the role of all that stuff, and he didn't, especially in my case, he didn't have to do that. So, yeah, his story's incredible.
And so you lost your mom last year too.
Yeah. Mom passed away. She got cancer, brain cancer. We found out on I think it was December the 12th, and middle of January she passed away.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was it like? Why were you getting in trouble? What was going on inside your head to cause that?
I've really tried to sit down and just understand it, but I had a lot of anger, and I don't know why. And I was very, very out to seek attention, and I don't know why that was either. I don't know really. I can't explain it, but I was angry. I felt like everyone was against me, and I felt like unloved in a lot of cases. And even though I was loved, and I had great parents and grandparents, and very stable for that matter, in regards to what some kids go through. I just was angry, and then every chance that I could get to get someone's attention or just do something, it was absolutely ridiculous, but it would gather some people's attention, and it would make people laugh or gasp or whatever. But that's what I was doing, and I haven't really understood why, because I don't understand it even to this day why that was.
Do you think it had anything to do with your birth dad leaving you like he did? Did you ever wonder about that?
I remember being an extremely energetic child to the point where it would be hard to gather my attention. Have you ever seen that child that just all over the place? I remember being that child, and I never found out that my dad had left me until third grade, and I knew I remember by that point I'd already been in some mischief and stuff like that. But I don't think it was based on any sort of anger. I think it was just being that kid that couldn't sit down. And then after maybe finding that out, I remember just being confused and not really understanding. And maybe that's when I sat back and I was like, everybody's against me, and just created this mindset of nobody's for me or anything like that. So I don't really know if it was just like a flip of a switch or anything like that, but I do remember I think at first the mischief was just being so energetic, and then it shifted to anger or whatever. But I can't explain it. I can't resonate.
Yeah,
with
so
it.
I've always been curious about kids who grow up without their birth parents. If that's something that gets in their head, that they feel rejected, maybe they can't articulate it or don't realize it. But if that's a sense of rejection, why did my birth father leave me? He's 3 hours away. Why didn't he want anything to do with me? I'm just curious to know, does that bother kids, or is that something
I think about? It did for a minute, but my dad coached me through all the ball teams. So if I thought it, I didn't have very much time before I was getting a butt chewing on the third baseline. And so my dad would come home from work, and I had a friend of mine that lived right next door, and we'd be waiting on him. And he'd come out of his work. He got home at 5:30 every single day. And if we weren't outside, he would make his rounds around the house. He would go to each one of our bedrooms, check on us, see what we were doing, and then he would go do his own thing. But there for a while, I can remember he would come home every day and he'd be the quarterback. So Dad was the quarterback, and he never had to be that. He was a free agent. He didn't have to, he didn't have to take us in. But I don't think that it's something that carried with me a long time, because Dad, even though he didn't know how to be, he wasn't raised with that father. Dad was always there. And he was always there. He was persistent. He was at every game that me and my brother was ever a part of. He was at every event that we were ever a part of. And I can remember Dad would, go to a game, and his work would call him at 11 o'clock at night. Dad would leave and work all night, work all day, and then be back the next night. So I never really felt like that I was missing out, but I was confused on what was going on exactly.
Yeah, so you were it got to the point that you actually had to go to some treatment programs.
Yeah, I can remember missing school. I can't remember what grade it was, but I can remember like a week's time. I was at like these juvenile hospitals, and I was staying there for a week's time, and Mom and Dad would come up, and they would do this like overview where they would review your behavior for the week. And there was one time that we made it to the parking lot, and I just lashed out. And I went back in, and I spent another week there.
Got recycled.
And there was some time I had to do I had to go to like counseling, and I lashed out inside the lobby, and the cops came, and it was just a whole ordeal. So yeah, there was a time where I really, my trajectory was really in a way that would land me like in a jail or juvenile detention center for a really long time.
For a long time. And it reached the point when you were a senior in high school. Tell us about what happened.
Okay, so, I had snuck around and was partying and drinking and things like that, and just really getting into anything I could. And there was a day, 6 weeks before my graduation, I thought it would be a good idea to pretty much just get hammered before school. And I did. That's what I did. We had vodka. It was me and a friend of mine. I won't disclose his name, but we drank some vodka, and we went to school. And I made it through first period because I could sneak a nap in and they didn't notice. But when I got in the English class, it became obvious to her that something was wrong, because we had a midterm 6 weeks before. We had a midterm, and I wrote IDK on all the answers to the midterm. Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, right? But that's what happened. And so she knew something was wrong, and I went in the nurse's office, and the school nurse told me I was lying. I was trying to sneak out of it. And she told me, she said, "Jacob, just be honest." She said, "For once in your life, just be honest. It's not like you're going to amount to anything. It's not like it's going to be a big deal. Just be honest." And at the time when she said that, I sat on that for a really long time and used that as fuel. And it drove me. But I'm really grateful that she said that. I'm really thankful that she said that. And because that gave me more passion and more drive to prove which was probably, she was probably speaking for the masses, but I was really, I mean, not only to prove her wrong, but just prove everybody wrong, that there was a little bit left inside, of me than what everybody was thinking.
So even though you got hammered and went to school, you've been in trouble all your life.
You could turn it around.
You were just going to be honest about it. There's just this one thing you're going to do. You're going to be honest.
That's right. Jacob, you might not pass a blood alcohol test, and you might not can stand up and do the thing, but just be honest.
Just wanted to prove that you could have just a little bit of integrity.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I'm so thankful that she said that to me.
Who was that nurse? Do you remember?
I do. Her name was Nurse Klein. Yeah.
All right. So you were honest about it, but didn't turn out so great, did it?
No, and I got expelled from school, and they sent me to another school, and at the time I'd already been talking with a recruiter in the military, and I remember his name's Todd Gerald, and I know he won't care if I say this, but I remember he was looking at my past behavior, and then me and Hole, and he didn't have a lot of faith in me either, and he would probably tell each and every one that talked about me that. But I called him to tell him that I'd got expelled from school, and he just kind of shook his head, very disappointed in me. And he said, well, I told him that they got this pay school, alternative school program that I'm going to go to, and I'm going to graduate and get a high school diploma. He said, well, whenever you do that, then we can move forward with what you want to do. So I had a conversation with my dad probably about 2 weeks after that. And I was sobbing in my room at night, and I came down the stairs, and I'll never forget this conversation that I had with him. But I was very upset at the way that my life was going, and I had a moment of self-reflection upstairs in my room, and I came down and I'd let a lot of people down in my life, just people that absolutely loved me. My grandmother loved me more. I was the favorite. I'll tell anybody that I was the favorite. I was at her house every day. As a young child. So she loved me, and she just poured her heart into me, and I let her down, and she was upset, and that hurt, and I was just upstairs, and I come down, and I was like, Dad, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this. And my dad has a brother that's been in prison pretty much my whole life, and especially all my adult life. And my dad told me, he said, son, you're going down a path. He said, the same exact path that I saw your Uncle Jeff go down. He said, and you're headed down this path, and it's self-destruction, and you're breaking everyone's heart around you. He said, but it's not too late to turn around.
You're a senior, almost fixing to graduate.
Graduate, yeah. And my dad and I had never had talks like this, ever. We never sat down and got level with one another before this time. And I don't know that we have since. But those words that he said to me, I'll never, ever forget. I could tell you the square inch that we were sitting in the living room. And that reassured me his love for me in that moment. And there again, the dad that he didn't have to be, right? The person that he didn't have to be was the one that God put in front of me in that moment that helped me. The words that he gave me, that encouragement, changed my entire life. Because I can tell you what, when I got upstairs, I went to bed, and I slept with the most amount of peace that I had in my entire life. And I made my mind up. It was without a doubt that I was fixing to turn it around. And just if I can summarize for just a second, I left about 4 weeks later, and I went to basic training. I was one of the ones in the top of my class. And then I've had an extremely successful military career. God be the glory. And I got into real estate. I worked at a state prison for 3 years. I did a state prison time. Then I worked at for a poultry company for a while. And then I got into real estate. And, man, it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing to my family and me. And what I love about it the most is I know it's going to create an opportunity for me to give back and to give to and be passionate about things that I'm passionate about. Mm-hmm. And it's created that opportunity for me.
You've turned things around, but that all started that day when your dad said, what path are you going to take, son?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You had somebody else in your life, though, Steve, who tell us about that.
Yeah, so, Dad wasn't really raised, like I said, around a father. So Dad wasn't one to teach me how to change the oil or hammer a nail in or build anything or manage a checkbook or any of that stuff. And I was 16 years old, and I was still on this troubled path, And I went fishing with a friend of mine and at a chicken farm. And we was walking around, and I said, I wonder if I could get a job here. So I went upstairs, and he wasn't there, and his wife was there. And she told me, Steve slowed down a little bit. He had heart surgery last winter, and this was the summer. And I think you'd have a good opportunity of getting a job. Let me talk to him. And I said, okay. Well, I think it was probably about the next day, I got a call from Steve. He said, yeah, come on, 8 o'clock, get started. Well, fast forward about probably like 13, 14 years from now or whatever it is, the math, I still talk to him on a daily basis. Steve never gave up on me. Steve fired me 20 times and hired me back 21. I learned work ethic. I learned, financial management. I saw how he fathered his boys and how they turned out. And I saw, how he kept his home. And I really saw someone that I wanted to emulate. Now, I still would leave from there and go off and do, reckless things, but I would always go back there, and it was consistent. And it was that consistency of the tough love, get out there and let's pick up dead chickens and work on barns and freezing weather, combined with I'm going to go home and my dad's going to show me this love, even though the whole world's against me. It was just that consistency from those individuals that just really helped me and shaped me.
So a lot of the guys that we interview on the podcast have had somebody in their life like Steve was for you, and it's supplemented. You had a dad.
Absolutely.
A lot of the guys we've had didn't have that.
Yeah.
But I think the point I want to make and the message I want to get out from that is, for those of us who have opportunities, we never know the impact we may have just by being a consistent role model and being kind to people. To that young man, I mean, he didn't have to be kind to you. He didn't have to hire you. He didn't have to hire you back.
That's right.
I can't tell you how many guys I had to fire at the ranch and hired them back. But there was a lesson involved in the whole thing.
Absolutely.
But for those of us who have opportunities to reach out to young guys and show them some grace, show them some role models. Look, it works. You look up to him and
absolutely.
To this work, 14 years later, he's still one of your heroes.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. Throughout my life, I had so many people in my corner. I told you a while ago I bought my house when I was 19. Well, it didn't have any central heating and air in it, and I had a decent amount of money, but I didn't have enough to buy an air unit. And my grandmother that raised me, kind of as a young child, not really raised, but I was, with her all the time. Mm-hmm. She told me, she said, I'm going to buy you an air conditioner to put in there, a central heating in there. And I said, no, Grandma, you don't have to do that. Because she didn't have much, she didn't. And I remember she said no. She said, have it installed and bring me the bill, and I'm going to pay it for you. And that was just another example of someone that just loves you so much. And she saw the effort. I mean, had my own house young, and she saw it. And she just loved me so much. And that was just one example of what she did for me.
I think that's a good point, because when people see you make an effort, that motivates them to want to help you. You found that to be true in your life. See a young guy like you, and we think, oh, boy, here we go. You know? I mean, I'm not like that. I love it when the guys from the ranch call me sometime, and they'll have a business idea or whatever, and I'm like, I'm eating that up.
Yeah.
Because they think enough about me to call and ask what I think. But in general, I think when young guys reach out to older guys like myself, we're a little skeptical, because we kind of get in our head that this generation's lazy, But when we see somebody working hard, they're really busting their can, they're taking initiative, then we're motivated. I mean, we'll go do anything. And I think that's probably what you've seen happen as a 29-year-old. You've seen this, there's some old guys out there who are looking for young guys to mentor and to help. But rule number one is you got to be willing to work. I'm not helping you if you're lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a message that we need to get out to that population.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all grounded on hard work. It is. It's your attitude. My wife's grandfather has been a huge influence on my life as well, and he has a saying. He's like, I wake up every day with enthusiasm. And people can sense a bad attitude. They really can. And they'll talk about it. You know, if you ever been to an airport and talk to somebody that's enthusiastic, it's not often you'll remember them if you do, because you usually kind of get some negativity thrown your way. So people appreciate and love a good attitude. So hard work, a great attitude, just somebody enjoys to be around, it goes so far.
You have a 2.5-year-old baby?
Yes, sir.
Tell us about that. Tell us about the day you found out about that, first of all. That's always interesting.
Well, I was working on a house, a rental, and one of my workers was in there with me, and he was under the sink, and my wife had came in, and she had opened a box up, and there was like a pregnancy test in there. And I was so excited that I ran and tackled him on the ground. I think we bent a hinge on the cabinet or something. It was just awesome. But I was so enthused. I was so happy. I was filled with joy. But then, you know, I had that moment of self-reflection, and I was scared. And I was scared I don't want my child to have the same attitude that I had growing up. I don't want him to, you know, I'm doing okay now, but it was pretty tough, and it didn't have to be that way. And I want him to create an okay life for himself without doing it all the hard way, you know, the real hard way, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I was worried, how can I ensure or help? There's no definite answer, but what can I do in my daily life, my daily behaviors to shape this young man or young girl I didn't know yet, to be, you know, the person that I would want him or her to be. And
what do you think it is? What do you think it's going to take?
You know, I don't think there's no long drawn answer, but I think the first thing is for him to see a family that eats together, that prays together. I think it's okay for him to see me fail. I think it's okay for him to see me fail. He's going to fail in life. Mm-hmm. But I want him to see how I handle failure, and I want him to see how I lean on his mother when I fail, and how I treat his mother every single day, and I want him to be proud, you know, of family, be family oriented. And I don't know what it takes to get there, Scott. I don't know, but I know every single day when I wake up with enthusiasm, I can't wait to see that boy's face. I can't wait to tell him, you know, good morning, or if I'm not there, FaceTime him and tell him good morning, or talk to him on the phone. On Christmas morning when he was easing towards the doorway to see what was under the tree, he looked back and he had this smile, and it was the most surreal moment of my entire life, and it was just, I can't explain the amount of love that was in my heart. And, you know, the people that go around and they chase a fast life and fast things, it's just no way that it can put the same kind of peace, joy, and love in your heart as having a family right there with you.
When he's grown, what would you like for him to say about you as a dad?
You know, I would like for him to say that I work hard, and that he saw that my intentions was to support our family in every single way possible. I would like him to say that he had a drug problem, which means that we drug him to church on Sundays. Mm-hmm. I'd like him to be able to know by my actions how much I love and respect his mother. And I would just want him to have some sort of example in his life that he can, when he talks to someone, when he's grown, he can say, you know, that I'm doing it this way and Dad done it this way, and just kind of a generational thing. But none of that matters if you don't have Christ in his heart. Mm-hmm. I want him to, if anything, where he spends eternity is the most important thing.
Wow. Your dad took you. He chose you.
He chose me.
Because your birth father left you.
That's right.
I want you to pay honor to your dad. You know, it's you and your dad you're like most men and their sons. They don't want to get emotional and they can't look at each other and talk. You know, we're goofy like that.
Yeah.
But this is an opportunity. Your dad brought you downstairs as a senior in high school, and he didn't raise his voice. He didn't get mad at you, but he spoke wisdom to you. But not only that, he took you in as a little boy, and he stuck with you when you were a mess.
That's right.
And I think I want to give you an opportunity through this platform to just look in that camera and address your dad.
Dad, I just want to tell you how much I love you and appreciate you for being the dad that you didn't have to be. I just appreciate your consistency on loving me each and every single day. You love me just the same as you did my brother Justin, and I just can't express to you how thankful I am for you, and I hope that every single day I can make you proud to be my dad, and I'm just so incredibly thankful for all the times that you coached me and played ball with me and did the things that you didn't have to do, and worked hard and sacrificed so much through your work to ensure that you provided for us. And I'm so incredibly thankful. I love you, Dad, and thank you so much.
I'll give you a chance, too, to say something to Steve. Steve's invested a lot in you.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to thank him, too.
Yeah, I just want to tell Steve how much I love him, and I'm so thankful that you let your light shine in terms of how you never gave up on me, and how you fired me 20 and hired me 21. So I'm just so grateful for you to be in my life and like a second dad to me. And I hope that I've made you proud as well.
Steve's last name is?
Campbell.
Steve Campbell.
Yeah.
And I ask people to do that because I want to remind guys like myself that we have an opportunity to make an impact. And sometimes we need to stick with kids when they don't.
Absolutely.
When they ain't no fun to stick with.
There you
You
go.
need to stick with them. And you were a kid that wasn't a lot of fun to stick with.
There's no doubt about that.
But some people stuck with you. And the end result is at 29 years old, you're a committed husband, a committed, faithful father. You're a citizen. You're contributing to the community. You're doing well in business. You're serving your country, defending your country. And it can happen. It can happen. Yep. We got one more little gift we're going to give you. You know, we always try to get a family tribute, and you've got a 2.5-year-old. And you have one on the way, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
How many months before you're
May? It's due in May, yeah.
So you're not too far away from being a father of two, and it's kind of hard to get a video from a 2.5-year-old. We got you just a little something we thought you'd appreciate.
What do you like most about your daddy?
That was me. Daddy was me.
Good job.
Jacob, what's it feel like? I know that's just brief, but is that not priceless to you?
It's priceless, yeah.
And I think about guys that are walking away from their kids, and they don't know what they're doing.
No. There's no feeling like walking in the door and having someone that's 2 feet tall running wide open 2 miles an hour to get that hug from you. There's no feeling.
Yeah.
And there's no feeling like being able to go into the bedroom at nighttime and say a prayer and read a story and watch someone drift off to sleep. There's no other feeling.
So the message, I think, is hang in there, dads.
Hang in there and put your nose down and grind.
Put your nose down and grind.
That's
Thank you, man. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for setting an example. And you're a young guy, and I'm hoping that some of our viewers or listeners will say, this guy's like me. This is a young guy. He's right where I am. He did it. He did it. And I can do it too. So thank you for being that role model. Thank you for putting your nose down and grinding. Thank you for making the decision that you were going to turn things around. Thank you for being appreciative to the people you need to be appreciative to.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. It's been good. It's going to help somebody. that'll conclude this episode of That's My Dad, where we're striving to help fathers become great dads, and we're breaking cycles of generational fatherlessness. Jacob is a good example for you guys to follow. Thanks for being with us. See you next week.